Hi, fifth graders. Mrs. Bandy here, back with you with another week of math. Before we get started on the math, I just want to see how you guys are doing. What have you been up to? Send me an email. Let me know what you're watching on TV, what you've been doing in your house while we've been cocooning. I have been watching TV a little bit more than I typically watch. I've been watching Dude Perfect with my son. Have you guys seen that? It's this group of guys. They're all friends and they do all these like really cool tricks. You should check it out. You can watch it on YouTube. I also watched this show on Netflix, and it's behind the scenes at Disneyland and Disney World, and it talks about like the creation of Disneyland and Disney World and how like Walt Disney secretly bought up all this land in Orlando to build Disney World, and it shows like behind the scenes on the rides. It's really cool. You should check it out. It's on Netflix. All right, let's get started with some math. This week, we're going to be talking about converting customary units of capacity. And when I mean converting, I'm talking about going from one thing to another. Like think about when we are on the fraction unit and we had an improper fraction and we converted that to a mixed number. So we went from an improper fraction to a mixed number. So that was the conversions. Today, we're going to be converting liquid measurements. We're going to be converting things like ounces to cups, cups to quarts, quarts to gallons, and things like that. And I was looking around my house trying to find some items to show you that would have liquid and would be converted. So I found this. It's a nail polish remover, and if you look really closely, there's at the bottom, you'll see it says 16 fluid ounces. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about some of the measurements. We're talking about ounces. I also found this Clorox bleach, and on the side it says 32 fluid ounces. So they're talking about ounces there, and ounces is the smallest unit we're going to be talking about in math this week. And then I also found this bleach. I actually just bought this because I was talking to Mr. Wooden and he couldn't believe I had bleach, so I made sure I got this on my trip to the grocery store. And this one's kind of cool because at the bottom it has ounces, so it's measured in ounces, 43 fluid ounces. But then it's also measured in quarts. It's 1 3400 quarts. So that's converted right there for you. It went from ounces to quarts. So that's something that I have in my house that can show you some of the measurements. You can also find things like when I think about quarts, I think about a quart of milk, or I think about a quart of oil that you or your parent or guardian would put in his or her car. When I think of gallons, I think of a big gallon jug of milk or a big gallon jug of water that you might see in your house or at the grocery store. So those are just some real life examples that I can share with you. All right, take a look at this chart that I have on the screen for you. You're going to see that there's different measurements. There's ounces, there's a cup. So ounces is the smallest unit that we're going to be focusing on in math. And then from the smallest, it goes bigger and bigger and bigger. We have cup is the next largest. Then we have pint, then we have quart, and then the largest we have gallon. So this chart you're going to want to use throughout the lesson. I've put it on every single slide so that you can reference it. This is something that I use if I'm baking. I have part of it memorized just, because I bake and cook a lot, but I always reference it whenever I need to convert liquid measurements. So this is here for you. Reference it if you need it. It's going to be on every screen on the slide so that you have it to help you and benefit you. On the screen, you're going to see a couple tidbits of information. If we were in the classroom, this would be something that I would have posted up on the bulletin board. And this is something really to keep in mind as we're moving forward when we're converting liquid measurements. If you're going and you're changing a larger unit to a smaller unit, you're going to need to multiply. So for example, if you're going from a gallon and you would like to convert the gallon into, you want to find out how many quarts that would be, you would need to multiply. On the other side, if you're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, you're going to have to divide. So for example, if you're going from ounces to cups, we know that ounces is a smaller unit than a cup, so therefore you would have to divide. Again, this is always here for you to reference. Don't feel like you have to memorize this. Come back, reference it anytime you need it. Let's take a look at this problem together. I have 8 gallons equals blank quarts. I'm trying to figure out how many quarts are in 8 gallons. So what I need to do first is I need to think about, am I going from a larger unit to a smaller unit or a smaller unit to a larger unit? Take a minute, think about that in your head, write it down on a sheet of paper. You're going to want to also reference our chart that is in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, if you said we are going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, you would be correct, because looking up here on my chart, I see that a gallon is bigger than a quart. So I'm going from a larger unit to a smaller unit. I know that there's one, ooh, I don't like that color. Let's try a different color. There's 1 gallon that equals 4 quarts, right? So if I have 8 gallons, what am I going to multiply that 8 by to figure out how many quarts that's going to be? Take a minute, think about that in your head. Or you can turn and tell someone, if you have someone near you, tell them what you would multiply that 8 gallons by. Okay, right, so I'm going to take this 8 gallons and I'm going to multiply it by 4 because there's 4 quarts in a gallon. So 8 times 4 would be what? I'll do that over here for you if you need it on the side. 8 times 4 is what? 32, right. So my answer would be 32 quarts. Those of you that are struggling to see the correlation of how the 8 gallons equals 32 quarts, take a look at it this way. If I have 1 gallon, how many quarts does that equal? And I'm going to look back over here at my chart. It equals 4 quarts, right? What if I had 2 gallons? How many quarts would that equal? Think about skip counting. That would be 8 quarts. If I had 3 gallons, how many quarts would that be? Again, I'd be skip counting. 4, 8, 12. It would be 12 quarts. If I had 4 gallons, how many quarts would that be? Right, 16, good. And then I would continue. If I had 5, let me change my color so it could go over here. If I had 5 gallons, how many quarts would that be? Let me skip count. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. If I have 6 gallons, how many quarts would that be? Again, I could skip count. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. 7 gallons. would equal what? Oh, don't need two L's in the gallon. 7 gallons would equal what? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. So therefore 8 gallons, if I'm skip counting, would equal, that's right, 32. So that's another way to see it if you're having difficulty multiplying it out. Here's a way that you can see it where you're skip counting, which might help you a little bit better. All right, let's take a look at another example. I have up on the screen 4 pints equals blank quarts. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think, am I going from a larger unit to a smaller unit or a smaller unit to a larger unit? Take a minute, think about that. And then think about, what do I do after that? Okay, so I'm going from a smaller unit to a larger unit because I'm looking back up here at my chart and I see that pints is a smaller than a quart. So I'm going from a pint to a quart. So therefore, do I want to multiply or do I want to divide? Right, I want to divide. So I'm going to think in my head again, let's see. If I have 2 pints, oh gosh, why do I always pick the yellow? Yuck. Okay, let's pick purple since I'm in the purple house. If you haven't seen that, the whole entire PowerPoint, go purple house. If I have 2 pints, how many quarts would I have? Look at my chart up here. I'm pointing to my chart. I would have 1 quart. If I have 4 pints, then how many quarts would I have? I'd have 2 quarts. So there you can see how I break it down, and that's why you would divide. You would take your 4 pints and you would divide it by 2 because there's 2 pints in every quart. I just right here broke it down for you so that you could see it a little bit easier. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next page and I'm going to have you do the next one on your own and then I'm going to have you check in with me. Do it on a separate sheet of paper. Remember, look at this chart. It will help you. That's the first step to decide whether you're going to multiply or divide. All right, let's take a look at this final problem. 24 quarts equals how many pints? I want you to do this problem on your own. I want you to use the resources that I have on this page to help you. I want you to pause the video in just a minute and solve it on your own. And once you finish solving, come back and compare your answer to my answer. And don't just pause the video for a second and then not do the work and come back and look at my answer. Really do the work and then let's compare. Go ahead and pause now. All right, so you should have gotten as your answer 48 pints. And you got that because if you look at our chart down here, you're moving from a larger to a smaller unit, right? Quarts are larger than pints. So that means that I have to multiply. I know that there are 2 pints in every quart, so I have to multiply 24 times 2, which would give me 48 pints. All right, go ahead, move on to the next slide. Okay, now I want you to do some practice on your own. You're going to go ahead and you're going to go into Envision, and you're going to see that I set up a playlist this week for you to make it a little easier for you to find all of your work in Envision. You're going to see when you log in and you go to classes that I've assigned a playlist for you, and it looks just like what you see on the screen. You're going to click on that, and it's going to have the independent practice there for you, which you're going to have to do on a separate sheet of paper. And then it's also going to have your practice buddy, which I assigned for you. And then at the end of the practice buddy, you hit submit, and it goes directly to me or your teacher. Mr. Dennison, Mr. Dorsey, or Mrs. Weaver will also receive it. This way, I thought it would be a little easier so that you don't have to click, work, exit, submit, do all of those things. It's just in one spot for you. As always, if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me or your classroom teacher. We are here for you to support you and answer any questions that you have, whether that's through email or you want your parent or guardian to call or Teams, however you want to reach out to us, we're here for you. Good luck.